Hi, and welcome to the first section of the good news here called Lost and Found. We're glad you've joined us, and we hope you had a chance to watch the interview with Greg and I about our experience of the good news. If you didn't, you can catch that on his page, but we're going to build on that experience here with some stories from the teachings of Jesus. You know, I remember a story of a guy who went home and he was excited to go out with his friends that night and his family, and so he got home from work and he went and kissed his kids and his wife, and he went into the bedroom, changed clothes. His friends come over and they're all excited. So they get ready, and his family and friends go into the van and they get ready to go, and he reaches into his pocket to get his keys, and oh man, they weren't there. They're gone. He'd lost them somehow between getting home and getting ready to go out. So you know, he starts to look around the house for 5 to 10 minutes, and you know, there's no luck. And those keys are really important to him because, you know, he's got his car key, the van key, the church key, obviously his house keys, his office keys, his parents' house keys. I mean, the list goes on. Like these keys are his life, so this is pretty important to him. So he's a little worried that he can't find them, but he calls his friends and his family in, and they start looking. You know, and as the minutes pass by, he really starts to panic because he thinks about the shame and just the difficult conversations that he might have to have with his boss. Man, I lost the keys, I got to get a new one, and with his church family and with his family and his parents, and it's really difficult, you know? So he's like super upset. And then from the back porch in a weird corner, here's one of his friends yell, "I got him, I found him." Man, he's like, "Oh, thank you." You know, there was such a great feeling of relief. Now that story, if you haven't figured it out yet, was me. That was me, and my family, and my friends, and I'll never forget, especially 2 points: the moment that I really felt like I had lost those keys, but then also the great joy and excitement when they were found. And I really, that was an important point, I think, to illustrate the way that God looks for us. You know, God has always been looking for us, and He searches for us just like those lost keys in a much greater way. You know, He's always been about that business. He wants to restore a relationship with us. And so if you're feeling lost today, if you want to meet this kind of God, we'd love to have you continue on in this series about the good news and lost and found things with some stories of Jesus. So we hope you catch the next video. Thanks for watching this, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for joining us in the second video in the Lost and Found series. We're so glad you're with us today. You know, in the first video, if you remember, I told you about my experience of losing keys. You know, I told you about the great panic I had when I thought I'd lost them for good, and the journey to find them with my friends, and then when I actually found them, the great joy of that. I also said that I think that illustrates God's search for a lost humanity very well, and the great joy there is when we return to Him. In this video, Jesus is going to begin a series of 3 stories that talk about lost and found people and a God looking for humanity. Why don't you dive into the text with us right now in Luke chapter 15 as we hear what Jesus has to say. Now all the tax collectors and sinners were coming to hear him, but the Pharisees and the experts in law were complaining, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." Now there's really one important thing about the setting I want you to get from these verses. Jesus is speaking to 2 different groups of people, but with one single message. Everyone is lost. We have one group called tax collectors and sinners. These were people that were rejected by the leaders of their day and their community in general, but they were coming to Jesus and happy to be with him. The second group is called Pharisees and experts in the law. These people are the religious elite of their day who interpreted and applied the law for the common person. The problem is they thought they were better than everybody else. Notice the contrast here in the text, coming versus complaining. And so Jesus responds to the complaint of the Pharisees and experts in the law. Now what's their problem with him? Well, Jesus welcomes the tax collectors and sinners that they can't stand, and they have judged them to be outside the law and therefore unrighteous. What about you? Do you fall into one of these groups of people? Are you like the complainers because you think you're better than everybody else? Do you follow the rules and tend to look down on anyone who doesn't keep your standards? Or maybe you just think you deserve good rewards and have a good karma going on, but you exclude people who don't fit into your circles. And no matter where you fall, you let this attitude keep you from Jesus and to see your need for him. On the other hand, are you a social outcast because you don't quite fit in? Are you disliked in your community because of some of the choices you've made, your profession, or your lifestyle? How will Jesus show both groups that they are lost and communicate their need for him? Well, he does that in a couple of short stories. So, with religious leaders and outcasts in mind, let's move on to the third video. Welcome to the third video of the Lost and Found series. With religious leaders and outcasts in mind from the setting in the second video, let's pick up in Luke 15, verses 3 to 7, as Jesus begins to tell a series of short stories. So, Jesus told them this parable. Which one of you, if he has 100 sheep and loses one of them, would not leave the 99 in the open pasture and go look for the one that is lost until he finds it? Then, when he has found it, he places it on his shoulders, rejoicing. Turning home, he calls together his friends and neighbors, telling them, "Rejoice with me, because I have found my sheep that was lost." I tell you, in the same way, there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous people who have no need to repent. Now, this is a true-to-life story coming from the culture around the time it was told by Jesus. Something is lost. In this case, one of a large number of sheep. And instead of not caring about the one because the shepherd still has 99 sheep, he goes out and looks for the lost one. The lost sheep really matters to him. He finds it and carries back and rejoices alone, and then with his friends too, because he found it. Interestingly, Jesus says something very important at the end. He speaks directly to the religious elites who were complaining that Jesus ate with the people they didn't like and had rejected them as unrighteous because they didn't keep their standard, as we saw in video 2. He says 99 sheep have no need to repent, but this is just a play on words. Think about it. Everyone has done something worthy of repenting for, something they need to apologize for, something to harm others, haven't we? It seems as if only 1% of the people in the audience realized they were lost. The attitude, really, of these religious elites is keeping them from seeing their need for Jesus. They had rejected him because of their attitude toward these tax collectors and sinners. He then repeats this story in different terms, but with the same key parts and same meaning. Check out the fourth video for a continuation of this good news about the lost and found things and lost and found people. Welcome to video 4 of the Lost and Found series. Picking up where we left off in video 3, Jesus tells us another story about lost and found things. This time it's a lady doing some spring cleaning in order to find a lost coin. Now, I don't know about you and your household, but every spring my mom would clean our house from top to bottom, and we would always be enlisted to help. But the cool thing was we always found something that we'd lost, some little G.I. Joe, some Lego piece that seemed to us the greatest thing in the world when we found it. Now, it's a little bit like this in Luke chapter 15, verses 8 through 10. Or what woman, if she has 10 silver coins and loses one of them, does not light a lamp, sweep the house, and search thoroughly until she finds it? Then, when she has found it, she calls together her friends and neighbors, saying, "Rejoice with me, for I have found the coin that I lost." In the same way, I tell you, there is joy in the presence of God's angels over one sinner who repents. Now, the same thing happens in this second story with the same point in mind as the first story. Something important is lost, and this woman goes to great lengths to find it. She also calls together her friends and celebrates because she found the coin, bringing in the joy, just like the shepherd had with the one sheep. The amazing thing is that Jesus equates this woman's actions to God's actions. No person is too far gone. Consider the great love of God for us and the joy he has when he finds us. There's a few good things for us to remember then as we transition to the final story. The first story is about a lost sheep, and the second story is about a coin, but don't forget the setting. No matter which group of people you fall into, the tax collector and sinner, or the Pharisee and expert in the law, that is, deeply religious people, there is hope for you as God goes to great lengths in his search. And that's good news. Also, people returning to the God who's looking for them, that's good news. God rejoicing over finding us, and in repentance we return to Him, that is good news too. I pray this message of hope truly be good news for you today. Come join us in the 5th video as we see Jesus tell us about a lost son. Welcome to video 5 in the Lost and Found series. We're glad you're with us again today. Now, if you remember in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th videos, we talked about lost and found things. And then particularly in the 3rd and 4th one, we saw Jesus tell us 2 stories. One about a coin and one about a sheep. One of 100 sheep, actually. And those stories shared some things in common. Now, in this story, Jesus is going to engage us again in lost and found things. But this time, it's not just things, it's people. In fact, it's 2 sons that Jesus wants to deeply engage us in this story with those sons, and what it means to be lost, and what it means to have a great God who looks for lost people. So let's read in the text right now in Luke chapter 15 as we read this story. It goes like this in Luke 15 verses 11 through 32. Then Jesus said, "A man had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, 'Father, give me the share of the estate that will belong to me.' So he divided his assets between them. After a few days, the younger son gathered together all he had and left on a journey to a distant country. And there he squandered his wealth with a wild lifestyle. Then, after he had spent everything, a severe famine took place in that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and worked for one of the citizens of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He was longing to eat the carob pods the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. But when he came to his senses, he said, 'How many of my father's hired workers have enough food to spare? But here I am, dying from hunger. I will get up, go to my father, and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired workers.' So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way from home, his father saw him, and his heart went out to him. He ran and hugged his son and kissed him. Then his son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his slaves, 'Hurry, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let us eat and celebrate, because this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' So they began to celebrate. Now his older son was in the field. As he heard and approached the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the slaves and asked what was happening. The slave replied, 'Your brother has returned, and your father has killed a fattened calf, because he got his son back safe and sound.' But the older son became angry and refused to go in. His father came out and appealed to him, but he answered his father, 'Look, these many years I have worked like a slave for you, and I never disobeyed your commands. Yet you never even gave me a goat so that I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came back, who has devoured your assets with prostitutes, you killed the fattened calf for him.' Then the father said to him, 'Son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. It was appropriate to celebrate and be glad, for your brother was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found.'" Just like in the other videos, Jesus ties together some common themes. There's something lost, something found, and great joy in the finding. In this video, the things that are lost include both the sons. Instead of things, it's people this time. It also includes something found. Unfortunately, it's only one of the sons, the younger one. Now, there's a twist at the end. Not only is the younger son found and the older one left outside and lost, really, he's bitter. So there's not that wholeness of joy. The younger son is happy and joyful. The older is outside and bitter. So let's talk about the younger son for just a second. He did some pretty wicked things, didn't he? He goes and asks his father for his inheritance money early before his father has died. That is a slap in the face. That's like saying, "Dad, I wish you were dead and I need your money." But he doesn't really need it, does he? What does he do in the story? Well, he goes and squanders the money on wild living. That's pleasure, that's self-seeking things. It says he spent it on prostitutes. So that's what he did that's wicked. He does something very good, though, at the end, doesn't he? He realizes his lost estate and comes back into relationship with the Father as he returns to him. The oldest son, he does some pretty wicked things too. He hates his brother. He's upset that he comes back. If you had a brother like that, that wouldn't be very fun. In fact, at the end, he's so mad, he's so bitter, that he stays outside the house, even against his father's wishes. And sadly, in contrast to the younger son in this story, at the end, he's not in the house. He's not back in a relationship with his father. Now, this story is also about that amazing father. It's the greatest father ever, and it's one who represents God according to Jesus. It's a father who goes outside the house to both sons. He runs, he humbles himself, and seeks his lost sons, and it is both of them. You know, who in the end then is the one who is restored with this great father? Which son? And who does that son represent? Well, it's clearly the youngest son. And that son, if you remember back to video 2, represents the tax collectors and sinners. What a great God we have who seeks and saves self-righteous and sinners. I'm so thankful that God sought me. Thanks so much for watching this series on Lost and Found Things. We hope you join us for the conclusion where we tie together all these threads and we point again to that amazing God. Welcome to the 6th and final video in the Lost and Found series. We're so glad you're with us. In the previous videos, we saw 3 stories that Jesus told us about lost and found things. They have something in common, don't they? They have 3 things in common, actually. 1, there's something lost. There's something found. And then there's great joy in the finding. They also have 2 groups of people that they're told to. These groups have something in common. They're both lost. And God is seeking them in the person of Jesus. One of those groups doesn't believe it and rejects him. The other believes it and know they need him. You know, I wonder, in your life today, are you at a place where you believe your need for God in Jesus Christ? Thanks for watching these good news videos in the Lost and Found series. Our prayer for you today is that God blesses you richly as you come to understand the good news that Jesus Christ is seeking you.